Hello and welcome to the Find Your Confidence Birth Summit. I am Charlotte Kanyi and I'm really delighted to be opening the summit today. So firstly, I just wanted to talk just a tiny bit who I am and why I've started this summit. So my name, as I said, is Charlotte Kanyi. My business is BirthEssence, and that started from the inspiration, really. This is so common. It's like everybody says this, from the birth of my own child, my first child. I've got three now, 9, 6 and 2. And that birth of my child set me off. I didn't, not straight away, but I began to realize as I started to retell my birth story, and I was like, oh, it was wonderful, it was amazing, I feel so great about it. Even when there were hard times learning to become a mother, I was still full of that enthusiasm, and the people would go, oh yeah, amazing. People would be like, oh, not expecting that answer at all. People kind of ask that question with a, so how was the birth then? Like, is it all right? You know, expecting to hear some kind of terrible story usually. And that was they were the kind of stories I was beginning to hear a lot. And I just thought, this is terrible in comparison to what I experienced. And so I then realized, well, what made the difference for me was the tools that I used to clear the fears and find my own way to my own version of confidence and what I wanted in birth. And I was really pretty determined to do that. So that's where it all started. Over years, I've refined that and continued to work with different women and people, whoever comes to me. And I've found some common factors that the people that come to me tend to be looking at, and I think it's applicable to everybody, and some things that maybe it's different individual situations as well. So as recently, it feels almost like everything from the political situation, I don't want to mention any of the B and T and P words, but the every situation, everywhere you look, it feels a bit chaotic and crazy, and it feels like, I saw a meme on Facebook. What did it say? It's not that things are getting worse, it's they're getting uncovered. And that's what it feels like. It feels like the shit under the surface is being uncovered, and it's not pretty, whether it's the political surface or anything else. And what is happening at the same time is that we women are also rising up, and so it's like both are rising and these voices are getting louder. There's a bit of a fight going on, and I don't want the birthing women to get caught in the middle of this fight. What my vision, starting straight with the vision today, my vision is for us all to have integrated that and to have reclaimed birth as a sacred rite of passage at the heart of the family and home. An ordinary everyday life that is valued as extraordinary, and for mothers to be valued both monetarily, seen as the society values money so much and it's so useful, and in the heart and soul and in the actions of how we treat our mothers. And that's kind of my vision at the beginning. And the summit came about because I can see a lot of commonalities, and I was hearing a lot of birth professionals, my colleagues, speaking of the same things over and over again, and what was breaking their hearts, and occasionally how they were feeling they were holding back on speaking to the women in their care, either for fear of backlash or for fear of upsetting women, you know, telling them how hard, telling them the challenges when they want to encourage them to be confident, and a desire to speak, a desire to share the wisdom with the women who want to give birth. And there's a big desire, a big calling to really strip away what's not working, and the fear that seems to be growing sometimes, that seems to be causing more talk about risks and more preventative measures and less trust in the unfolding and capabilities of a woman giving birth. And so I brought together a whole load of amazing women, and I would have liked to have brought double or triple people to talk, because there were so many amazing people out there and amazing mothers too. One of my driving beliefs and practices is that the mother, you, are the most important person at your birth and the ultimate expert in your birth, your body, your birth, your baby. You are the one who knows when it comes down to it. Other people may have pieces of the puzzle that you need, pieces of information that will help you, but you are the decision maker, you are the expert, you are the one who knows in your heart. And I know if you're listening to this, you'll know what I mean. Some of the things that I hear are, well, I didn't think he was quite ready to be born yet, but they said he had to be induced. I really wanted a home birth. My husband wanted a hospital birth. So we're going to the hospital or the midwife centre. And there's a knowing that happens. And sometimes it goes like, well, everyone was telling me that I should do, I don't know, have a sweep, have an epidural, and I wanted to do, I didn't want to do that, or I hear, and so I didn't. And I hear sometimes, well, they offer was induction, but I chose a cesarean. You know what you want and what is best for you. And the challenge is to feel confident to speak up for that and get that and find the path through that. And that's what the tips and wisdom in all of these interviews are leading towards. So it was where I'm seeing women not get what they want, even though they know in their heart what they want. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion, but ultimately we know underneath the confusion, and to find a path through that. The heartbreak was where women were not getting what they want. So that was why I decided to hold this summit. So firstly, I'd like to just say, what is confidence and what is confidence in birth? So first thing that a lot of women do, and I want to joke and say, oh, I've never done this, but I obviously have, and that's compare yourself unfavorably to other people out there. So that might look like me going, oh, I've never done a summit before, I don't have to do that. I can look at all those people and how smart their videos look, and how smart they look, and how eloquent they are, and they don't stumble over the words and look down at their notes. Oh, I'm not as good as them, I'm not confident therefore. And it's almost like we mix confidence in with perfectionism, and oh, there's another word, see, I've forgotten. There was another word on the tip of my tongue, but we're mixing what I see as no fear, so perfectionism and no fear, and we think, well, you have to have no fear, and we look at other people and think they're doing it better than we are. And I don't think that's the true nature of confidence. For me, confidence is the willingness to be you, no matter what, no matter how scared you are, no matter how many mistakes you make, no matter if other people are saying you should do something different. And so this is kind of a journey and a path, and it, for me, my kind of confidence means that I have the comfort of a rightness feeling in my heart, that I'm doing my best, I'm doing something that feels right to me, and if the things that drive me, that I believe in, of course, I really want to do something like that. And then the confidence, where I feel confident, is I no longer attach so much story to the meaning of who I am when I feel scared, or when I mess up, or when things don't work out the way I planned. And I'm willing to give it a go anyway. I'm willing to look stupid, which I hate feeling stupid. It feels like death to me. I'm willing to give it a go anyway. And it's the kind of confidence that I've grown where I find myself running the summit out of nowhere. And to be able to say, yeah, what I have is worth listening to, what I know, what I've learned, it's worth listening to you and it can help you. So for me, you can be confident and be scared at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. It's because I feel that confidence, conviction, and courage go hand in hand. So we find the conviction in our hearts of what we want. We find the courage probably somewhere. Conviction, sometimes that's in your heart, sometimes it's in your gut. It's less commonly felt in your head. But your heart will also have it there, and heart and womb a lot with women. And you'll find that conviction and then marry it up with the courage, that they kind of burn that flame together. And this looks like confidence then. And you start to take the direct action, take the practical steps that will make your dreams come true. And I no longer want people to compromise on their dreams of birth. It's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking to hear the stories of I wanted this, but that's where my motivation came. And I understand that plans don't always go the way you expect. And that's not the same as not even going for your plan in the first place and not feeling confident enough that you matter to speak up if you're and get if your birth is not going as expected and there needs to be a change of plan. For me, the confidence then is to be able to ride that, be able to still say this is what I want in those moments. And the piece that a lot of people are talking is finding the right knowledge. For me, I had so here's the lack of perfectionism. I'm looking at the wrong notes. We're getting the wrong things. So for me, this is really particularly important in birth now because you're doing the most important job in the world, bringing new child, new life into the world. And what you do while you are pregnant, I don't mean like, what kind of job you do or where you go. I mean how you are with you, how you treat yourself, how you look after yourself, how you think about the world, how you think about you inside your head, inside of you. All of that is being felt and experienced by your baby. And these babies, the future of the world, they want the revolution, the changes as much as you do. You, when you're looking at the future you're bringing your child into, will say, oh, I really care. People are now rising about the environment, about political, about everyone wants a better world for their child. And your child wants that too. So together you're like a team. And when you model for your child, speaking up, getting what you deserve and believing you matter, your child gets that too. And that is how we're changing. We're working on you now as the mother, and the child is benefiting, your children are benefiting directly. And so this is really pointing at one of the biggest blocks I want to talk about today, which is not believing in yourself, not believing you have value, not believing you or your needs matter enough to speak up when it's difficult, when it's uncomfortable. And I see this pattern over and over again. You might call it, there's sort of overtones of good girl and good mother, but it also comes down to a fundamental way in which there's an imbalance between men and women, and this is why I believe it's a feminist issue at the heart. It's the kind of last area to be really embraced by feminism, because it initially started as in the workplace, where very much needed to be, and perhaps in history with the getting the vote and all these things are so recent in history. We've kind of, I feel kind of like, you know, birth and caring is like the birth is like the seen as women's domain. In my husband's culture, it's seen as the women's business because it is women, biologically women's bodies that do that. I would like to acknowledge that some people's gender identity means they may be a man, but the body biologically has to be female to carry the baby. So in that respect, but to be inclusive, people, I'm mostly going to be using the word mother and women because that's the majority, but in some cases I will be saying people. These kind of blocks are ones that are kind of like the inside job. So some of the tips that you will hear from people later in the interviews are looking at the practicalities of what we need biologically in the creating of the right environment. And a lot of my speciality is looking at your own inner world and how to change that environment on the inside and how that then starts to reflect in who shows up in your outer world. And so what I'd like to talk about is one of the biggest hidden links that I see, that was the one that's most affected me. And it's why I had the conviction that I did, that I often see in second-time mothers. So second-time mothers who've had a poor first experience, not necessarily fully traumatic, although in many cases it is, because there's an incredible number of reports and the percentages of traumatic birthing seems to be rising. But it may just be a disappointment that it didn't go as planned. And then is well, I don't want that again. I want this. Now you've done it once, you know even more what you want. And the worse the birth was, the more determined women become to do it differently. It is my prayer that this summit, in part, helps avoid that situation where you are coming to birth with a previous traumatic birth to recover from. And that as first-time mums, you really hear that you are worth investing in now and getting the birth you want now, this time round, the first time round. Second-time mums, you'll know already what I mean. And for me, the reason I had that conviction was because I did have a previous traumatic birth, and that was mine. I sound like my 2-year-old. My entrance to the world. So that came about by accident initially. I had been traveling and young and carefree, not thinking about kids at all. I always wanted kids. I wanted to get married and have kids. That was the dream. And I kind of, this is totally irrelevant to what we're talking about, but I kind of, well, maybe not totally. It's why I don't want to admit that to people sometimes, because it wasn't cool to dream of wanting to be, you know, essentially a housewife with kids. It wasn't cool because we don't value that enough. So it's not like, what do you do? Well, I'm a housewife. You know, you might want to, you know, I'm an accountant or I'm this director of a business, but I'm a housewife. Just doesn't have the same ring about it. Why? In my husband's culture it does. My husband is from the Gambia, and in my husband's culture there is much more reverence given to the mother. And perhaps I'll talk about that later, I'm not sure if we have time. So for me, traveling, and I eventually became a bit disillusioned, bored and depressed because I didn't know what to do. I wanted to do something meaningful with my life, and I'd gone right to the ends of the earth, literally as far as you can get from England, where I'm from, to Australia, to New Zealand, to different countries in Asia. And there was just something calling me home. I came home to find family members literally dropping like flies with different illnesses, and it was a tough time in my family. And I found myself crying every day. It was quite a bad time. I tried all kinds of things by myself. Laughing therapy, I used to laugh like it, and then I just laugh and cry. It didn't quite work how I wanted. I tried different things. And then I discovered the journey by Brandon Bayes, and I went to a seminar. This is a emotionally based forgiveness process with guided visualization to uncover cellular memories that have been trapped in the body and that are therefore preventing you from working optimally, but both on a physical and emotional level. She healed a tumor, but there's also like emotional patterns and things to heal. So I began on a deep dive into that training as a practitioner and uncovering all kinds of memories that sometimes they look so small. And then the impact on what you start to believe about life can be quite big. And at one point I was taken back accidentally. We were going, you kind of, if you've got a particular issue, you may set the intention to heal that issue, but you don't know necessarily the memory you're going to come up with. And I was like, oh, bright lights, I'm scared. And I suddenly realized I was being born. This was the first time I don't have a conscious memory, like most people don't have a conscious memory of being born, but I've never been so scared. It was real. I was hanging onto my chair. I was still remembering I was terrified. And then, so my birth story, as I discovered in that memory, I knew that I'd been separated from my mum. So all I really could see in this memory of this was the separation from my mum and the terror, the bright lights, not wanting to be touched. I later spoke with my mum, and I have revisited this memory in different aspects, different parts of the birth and the womb since. And yes, I was born breech, then helped out with forceps, and then taken away from my mum. This I experienced as pretty traumatic, as you can imagine. But of course we forget. We grow up and we forget. So I didn't like it when I was crying and everyone was celebrating that I was alive, because I was like, no, but I'm not happy that you just pulled me out. It was really strong, but it was the separation from my mum that was the strongest in that first journey. So I healed that. I did a process to do with the journey, where I was able to empty out that pain and be heard and felt and seen and loved again. And that process was one of the most amazing experiences I'd had to date at that time in my life. And just to feel myself being held by my mum as a baby when I'd just been born, which didn't happen in real life, filled me up with that love and that reconnection to my mum. And it lasted. The feeling would just come back. I remember cycling to work once and just reliving that moment, feeling happy with who I was and with life. Of course, we carry on and you don't live on bliss all the time, but that something shifted in me at that moment. And that is one of the driving reasons why I knew that I did not want that kind of thing to happen to my children. I was very conscious of what their life might be like in the womb. And to be clear, it doesn't mean you can't ever have a bad thought or an angry thought. Your children aren't going to be scarred for life if something like that happens, that you're angry or you're arguing. They are learning about life, but if you are, like I was, looking at these memories and releasing them, they learn that that's possible. And so it's more about the connection and communication you have with your child and explaining to them as you're pregnant about life. You can talk with them already. So for me, I was doing that with my first son, and I absolutely knew what kind of birth I then wanted. In other words, the opposite of what I had. I wanted the connection with my son. I wanted him to come in his own time. This felt really important because of my experience of being pulled out before I was ready. Okay, they may have been saving my life at that point. I do have to acknowledge they helped me. However, the experience as a baby wasn't that. So they may have been doing the right thing, but I would question, with my mum on her back with her feet in stirrups, whether, had she been allowed to be in her own position, given that she'd successfully got the rest of my body out, and knowing my mum and me for that matter, maybe she would not have needed the forceps. In other words, it's an iatrogenic problem that they created then solved. And either way, that was my experience. That was why I was so determined. So that is what I created with my son. I'll share a little bit. My son's birth, it can be found in full in a book, actually, Water Birth Stories to Inspire and Inform, which is full of all different kinds of water birth stories. And that was what I chose for my first. I had a pool at home, and he came out all through my labour. The midwives, well, all through my labour I was mostly at home without the midwives there. I went to sleep overnight. It felt like one long contraction, but actually I was asleep, and then I'd wake up to the contraction. So I slept all night having contractions. Then I woke up in the morning and sort of ran around getting ready, being a bit panicky first time, didn't know what I was doing, but relatively overall calm. I'd done a lot of hypnobirthing. I couldn't find a class at the time. This was 2010, and my hours were funny. I couldn't find a local class. I had a 2-hour play track that I would put on every night, and just very, very quiet, so I could barely hear it. Every night, put that on and go to sleep. And it really, really helped. I was so calm. And I loved the midwives that came, even though I didn't know them. There was some really funny moments in there where, the first midwife nearly set her coat on fire with my candles. But there was such a beautiful experience. It was calm, it was peaceful, it was serene. It was nothing like it is having a 9-year-old in the house. Not so calm and serene. But he still got that serene look though. And his first breath was the most amazing moment for me out of that birth, where he just came out, eyes closed. Well, he actually shot out across the pool. Midwife went like that, pushed him a little bit closer back between me and my husband, lifted him out, and he lay there, and then he went, didn't actually open his eyes. And they said that his heart rate hadn't changed. I don't know how many times they checked, maybe 3 times or something, or 4, I don't really remember. But they said his heart rate was just really steady the whole way. And I can imagine it because I nearly fell asleep. So maybe he was too, because I got into the pool and we'd had problems filling up water with the electricity problems, getting it hot. So when we filled up the pool, and I was like, is it going to be ready in time? Is it going to be ready in time? I was a bit tense and I could feel my body wanting to push. And then I got in, I just went, oh. And it just, so much tension just left me, because that was what I'd really been waiting for. That the pain stopped at that point as well. It had been painful up till then, the pain stopped, which astonished me. I didn't have too much attachment to that. I wanted it to be manageable, and it was. And I believe it was because I just relaxed so much in absolute bliss that I'd kind of made it. To me, it was like, I've got in the pool, I've made it. I hadn't actually done the birth bit yet, but I just felt like I'd made it. Because it was so almost looking like it wasn't going to happen. And so he was born, and that was just amazing. There's a couple of points about the birth that show the points. That show some of the points I was talking about earlier, where, like the midwife, as I mentioned, nearly set her coat on fire. So the candles were out, but I wanted them lit again, but I didn't say that. I was too shy, even in my own home, because the midwife said, "Oh, better not burn the house down," because she probably was a little bit flustered because she didn't put her coat on my candles without noticing. And I was too shy to say, actually, my house, my birth, I want the candles back on, please. Somebody light the candles, please. So this was really indicative of what I see and what I hear and what I'd like to change. That's what I wanted. why didn't I ask for that? It's a small wish, but it felt too much to ask for. So that is something I changed and have changed with, because that first birth was like my first layer of confidence. So one of the things for me is that having been helped when I was born with forceps, having had that experience, I didn't have a lived experience in my body that birth could be easy, effortless, and that I could do that on my own. I knew, I felt like I might need help. And I was both wanting that and scared of that. Like, can I do it? Can I or not? On some level. So I had spent the whole of my pregnancy using my therapeutic tools to clear out every memory I could find. I mean, I was dedicated. So I was really confident. And this showed up not just in my levels of confidence, but it showed up in the environment I was able to create. So I didn't know my midwives, but as soon as she walked in, I went, like, I like you, relaxed. I could have had a midwife come in that I hated, and I wouldn't have been able to control that. But it was one of the things that I'd done a lot of work on, and a kind of mindset and releasing cellular memories of beliefs I might have about things not working out for me. I'd done a lot of visions on it, vision boards. I'd done a lot of prayer, I guess, about that. So this happened throughout my pregnancy, where any challenge we had, which included needing a fit to fly certificate to go and get married in the Gambia, and my placenta being classed as low, meaning I needed an extra scan before they would give me the certificate. And I knew that it wasn't probably low, because it was borderline when she put that diagnosis on me anyway. It was almost touching or something. So really, it's not going to start covering when it was almost touching. It's going to move up and away as I got bigger. So anyway, I got my fit to fly certificate. I went to the Gambia, and that is something that also gave me confidence, which I think is worth mentioning. In the Gambia, I was treated differently. I was there for a month, so no midwife appointments for a month. No tick boxing, no checking, no talk of risk, no fears. Everyone was delighted to see me, delighted I was pregnant, and would treat me, you know, there was me, a Westerner, first time in the Gambia, very hot, and you're already hot as a pregnant woman, giving me chairs to sit on, making sure I was okay, saying, wow, she's amazing. You're not too hot, you're okay, you're okay. Oh, wow, look, she's still walking, she's pregnant. Yeah, she's good, because I was walking everywhere with my husband, and we were going swimming in the sea. It was totally relaxing and refreshing. And something of the atmosphere, of the way that mothers are treated in the Gambia differently, the way that the mother is respected, soaked into my skin, that when I came home I had a different level and layer of confidence that I don't quite know how it got in me, but I attribute it to that stay in the Gambia. Then I gave birth, that added another layer. And then I have 2 more children, and each time I've deepened in a layer of confidence. Each time I have had new fears that have taken me by surprise. Some of them I think were my children's fears. Most of my particular fears were about the system. So I think sometimes people have fears that are all about their own body. Will I tear? Will I be able to do it? Will I feel out of control and be screaming and crying? For me, it was like, will the system say you can't do that? Will someone try to take over your birth and say you must do this, and I can't say no? Because that was my pattern, like not being able to say, can I have my candles lit? I can't speak up for myself. That was the pattern. So the second birth, again, I cleared a lot of fears, did a lot of speaking up for myself, including negotiating taking my own blood pressure readings towards the end of the pregnancy, because I started to have a touch of white coat syndrome. I'm not sure why that didn't happen in my first pregnancy or my third pregnancy, but in the second, every time I went anywhere near the doctors, shoot through the roof. Interestingly enough, my son now is scared of going to the doctors, so don't know if it's me or him, but combination of both. And so I'd kind of it felt hard. It really did feel hard to ask those things. I was scared. I'm vulnerable. And I managed to do it anyway. And then he was born before the midwife got there. And this was something really beautiful. It's so many points I'd love to share with you. So number one, even though I had given birth alone, meaning I had midwives and my husband with me, two midwives and husband with me when I gave birth to my first. But because they were there was a small part of me that was handing over my power, not literally, because they didn't do anything, they witnessed, they did all the wonderful things that a midwife witnessing a normal birth unfolding normally would do. But in my energy, it was like deferring in some way to them. But it was very subtle. In the second birth, because it went so much faster, like 3.5 hours from start to finish, didn't expect that. So there was 2 hours of contractions that were quite manageable, and I thought, I want to go to bed. And then I was like, don't think I can go to bed. But I was over halfway through by then, I didn't know. So my husband was like, do you think you should call a midwife now? I'm like, no. But that was because I was like, I don't want them to come too early. The time he was asking this was, my waters had broken, but no water had come out, but I heard them go pop. And the pain was excruciating, in part because I was trying to lie down on my bed to help my son go to sleep, and I did not want to lie down on the bed at this point. And it got to the point where it was just so painful lying on the bed that I got off the bed and just was like, I'm having a baby. And he'd be like, come back, I'm having a baby. And I was storming up and down the room with, what are you doing, Mum? I'm having a baby. And I went into the bathroom, come back, I'm having a baby, you come here. And he wouldn't come to me. And then I started pushing. So then I said, okay, yeah, call the midwife. And it's due to his calls of, my wife needs you. Oh, now she has the baby, that we worked out roughly when he was born, because he came so quickly. And what that did for me was a deeper level of, yeah, I can do this. I did this, like, literally on my own. Like, there was nobody else. There was nobody I could say, is this okay? Is that okay? What am I doing? Or question. It was literally, okay, there's just me. And I went deeper inside myself, and my brain switched off here. So had you asked me beforehand, well, how do you catch a baby when you're on your own? What if I don't know, what if, how would you do it? How does it, what position would you be in? And all those things. I didn't think about any of that. It just happened, just naturally, just caught him. He came out crying, he was okay, he started trying to feed. There was a point where I started panting like a dog, trying to slow it down, but I didn't go, I think I should slow it down. It just was like, my body started, I knew that I needed to slow it down because I felt a slight pain. And I thought, I'm tearing, because it's happening so fast. I need to slow it down, open one. I started visualizing like white roses opening and being open. And after that, like, I felt that sharp pain, and the midwife later confirmed that I had a slight tear inside. Exactly where I'd felt it during the labour was where, when she was checking me, that I felt it again. So I know I knew, I almost, like, I could see this tear happening. And as soon as I slowed it down and opened out, that was no longer a problem. And I didn't, you sometimes hear talk of ring of fire when they're just coming out. I didn't feel that. I didn't have any of that. He just came out. That was an amazing experience, really amazing. And my husband's face, it's worth it for my husband's face when I called him back upstairs, and there was the baby already. He wasn't expecting that. It was brilliant. And one of the reasons I share that is because so many people, including my midwife, said, weren't you scared? And I have a view on that, because no, I wasn't. And so many women I hear who have had experiences like that were scared, or are scared that it might happen to them. What if they give birth before the midwife come? Who will deliver the baby? How will that happen? And actually, it's like, well, the same thing would happen as if the midwife's there. If you're in labour and something's going wrong, you will already have called the midwife, because you will sense it, or you will have changed yourself into the hospital already. So in this case, my birth was unfolding normally, and I knew that. On some deeper level, I knew that. I knew there was nothing to be scared of. It was just in me. So I'd done all the work, and it was almost like I couldn't understand why they thought I should be scared because I was giving birth on my own. because I was giving birth. So it didn't make a difference to me if the midwife was already there or not. I suppose particularly because my fears were that somebody would take over and take away from me. But it really does beg a deep question. Why are we all so fearful? I'm not saying you shouldn't have midwives there. It's a perfectly valid option. And I think we do better when, particularly perhaps in early labour or in preparation and support during pregnancy, when we have other women around us and other people around us who can say, I get you, I know you can do this. And they've been through it, so they do know. And you can see that reflected and feel really strong. And for me, that second birth did give me that confidence that, yeah, I can do this, like really on my own. So then I had a third child, and this is interesting for me because you can read his birth story in detail on my website, so I won't repeat it all here. I'll let you go and read it. But this one for me was like another layer. Can I be confident enough to have other people at the birth, not just me, and still be true to what I want? Do I value myself enough to make this pregnancy and birth really amazing? And that for me meant investing in me during the whole pregnancy with massages, acupuncture, an independent midwife who was the biggest delight in the world. This meant I did not have, as an older woman who was 42 actually when I had my third, would have been offered induction at 40 weeks, would have been offered probably extra scans, and I didn't want to be measured. I didn't want any scans. I didn't want to have some of those things. I wanted to have urine tests. I wanted to have blood pressure checks. I wanted to have the baby checked and palpated, and my midwife, hugely skilled, could tell exactly how big he was going to be from feeling him. She was spot on. When we weighed with the scales, he was £9.6, and she'd guessed £9.7. So that's give or take a bit of meconium and a bit of milk. She was spot on. So for me, that was like, in that third child, not only did I feel confident, I also was able to value myself in a different way. So I guess the only last thing I'd like to say about that is that even in my third child, I had fears come up to the point of having panic attacks a couple of days before I gave birth. And what is interesting is I thought those fears were probably his, but I had the tools. I called a colleague. I have friends in Australia. I called her at 1 o'clock in the morning in England, but it was daytime there. And in half an hour, she was able to clear what I couldn't see, where the fears were coming from. And I spent a day and a half just basking in this peace. And I'd forgotten what that was like for the last few days that I've been having panic attacks. Just, this golden energy, I call it, peace. All is well in the world. I am okay. He is okay. It was just amazing. And then I gave birth, which you can read on the website in full. So those are my 3 birth stories, and they were, they didn't go to plan in so many little ways. Everything from not being able to fill up the birth pool to not even getting the birth pool out with my second child. So I would really like you to feel and have the birth that's right for you. For some of you, probably a minority, but for some of you that would be an elective cesarean section. For some of you, again, a minority, that might be a free birth where you choose to have no midwife there, perhaps your partner. And for others, that will be a hospital birth, a midwifery centre birth, or a home birth. It's all birth, and I would love you to feel confident about going inside to find your path for your birth, that you and your baby want to experience that's loving, that's gentle, full of respect and dignity, being listened to, cared for and supported throughout your birth. There are obviously kind of practical steps with the environment for how you can support your biology. And for me, what would I say? My initial opening tips are listen to you inside, and it will guide you on the path of what's your next step. Might be hypnobirthing, might be going on holiday. I did that in my first pregnancy, and that was amazing. And so, is there anything else? Anything else? There is one little thing. So I kind of, even with this summit, not quite sure what's going to be ready for tomorrow. I'm recording this in Halloween, and it's like birth. You never feel like you're going to be ready. You never think you're going to be ready, but you are as ready as you need to be, because you can do this. And all those little things that you think you need to do, some of them you can let go. I've let go of a few things with the summit I would have loved to have done, and it's like they're not the essentials. The essentials are that we have these interviews for you to listen to, and that you are inspired to do the work for you then after that. Everything else, it's just nice prettiness. So find what's important for you, make that happen, because you matter. That's the biggest thing. And given that it's Halloween, it's a time when they say the veil's thin and we talk with our ancestors. So I know you're listening to this now, it's the 1st of November, but feel those ancestors with you. All the women who've given birth over millennia. It's only in modern times we've kind of messed it up and made some serious medicalization happen. And the pervasive belief is that, well, birth's dangerous. Women's bodies don't work properly and we need to help. We're being helpful. I challenge that. I challenge that is in a modern industrial era that has started to happen because we interfered. And that, yes, we have this amazing medical surgery and medical support and trained and qualified people to spot the emergencies before they become an emergency. We are good at people not dying. What we need to do is to bring back the sacred reverence and trust in a woman's body, and then see what she is capable of, because we think that you're not capable of certain things because you don't see it often, because the body closes up when it's scared. So invite in the wise wisdom to carry you and guide you to your path to confidence. And it's there, that path is there. And I'm hoping the step that you're taking is listening to these interviews. So I hope you've enjoyed this introductory interview with a little bit of my story and some of my birth stories. And do come along into the Facebook group and ask any questions, and follow along with the journal prompts, the classes, anything else that you might need to know. So have a wonderful month listening to these amazing speakers, and have an amazing birth.